Welcome back to Kerbal Space Program 1.4, making history. And why are we flying another craft up into the atmosphere, you ask? Well, because I killed that satellite, I may want to try and get another craft at Duna. And although it's hideously expensive to do so, technically I still can, apparently. I did take a look at Transfer Window Planner, which is this. And if we have a look at that, not Moho, let's look at Duna. You'll see right now that's the most efficient over here, but we're right here, so we're not into the green, we're just on the very edge. Oops, and I need to concentrate a little bit more on orbiting, and that is still fine. We're just okay. I just want to make sure we're the right attitude. Yes, so we can, if we're willing to spend about 4,000 Delta V, we can sort of maybe get there. So I thought I'd start flying a new Viking 1. And then we'll see how well that goes. So that is pretty fine. And let's just create a maneuver here. Let's circularize as normal. And let's just line up with that. 51-second burn. We probably have nothing like that. We only have like 37 seconds left in our fuel tanks. So we're going to have to start that a little bit earlier than we normally would. But let's just position ourselves over here and we'll get up into orbit as normal, and let's see if I can actually find a maneuver that gets us to Duna at some point soon. And here we are, we have a maneuver. It's going to cost just under 1600 meters per second, but it will get us to Duna. It'll get us there a little bit oddly. It's not an ideal home and transfer. I'll show you that in a second, just once we've lined up. And other way a bit. Get that back. Okay, and we've got about 18 minutes anyway. It's going to get shifted when we time warp, but trying to get us roughly there. And I've got the solar panels out. Must remember solar panels. Must remember solar panels. So here's our path. We're going to basically be going way outside because we're spending on radial more than anything else. Going way outside Duna's orbit and coming back in, and we'll have an encounter here. Now, what I don't know, and what's not easy to tell here, is what our relative speed will be when I come screaming back in towards Duna. Whether we can aero capture again, that may be debatable, but this does mean that at least I can get close. And we do, of course, have that other stage. It's not going to use up all the fuel from our AJ10 stage to get there, so we can get all this done. Where's our... There we go. So we're going to have to move around to, say, here. Let's walk forwards. And this is not really a rescue craft. It's more of a communications craft that our intrepid crew on the other ship, which is coming up in 40 days, which we're going to switch to just shortly once I get this off towards Duna. We're going to shift to that, and then we will then try and aero capture them, or at least aero break them. Maybe even capture into orbit, but maybe even just direct. Really, it doesn't matter much either way because we have direct control over them. Let's just put you here. This is a 42-second burn, so I am coming up on that. So 21 seconds split the difference, and around about here. Okay, so we're burning. And just going to dusk as we head off into the, well, I was going to say the unknown, but not really the unknown. We definitely have been here before. So, 1,000 Delta V. Let's just keep on going, and we should get that up and running. So, we don't have to be getting too exact, because we're going to have to probably correct to get ourselves on the correct trajectory into the atmosphere. So, that's us leaving the orbit, of course, when the camera shifts. And then I'm going to just start decreasing because we're going to have to chase that maneuver a little bit to be more exact. And there will do. Okay, let's leave you alone entirely. Let's see how close I was. Doesn't matter if I'm not exactly where it says. Yeah, it's closest approach is 56,000 kilometers. Doesn't much matter. We're going to be heading out and then probably making a correction around here. So if I had a maneuver and can we just add an alarm there? Viking 1, add an alarm. That can go away. So Viking 1, there we go. 260 days from now, we're going to have to do that correction. But for now, let's shift over to the Duna lander. Okay, so here we are on the lander. We're warping in towards just the sphere of influence change. You'll see two paths coming in right here. And we're just about to change sphere. And we dropped time warp a little bit. I actually want you to go a little bit faster, please. There we go. All right, so now, well, we can keep this maneuver node if we want to, but if we have a look at where we're going, our peri is 185 kilometers. We're going to have to bring that down under 50 somewhere, probably even under 20 maybe. But let's just see what we can do with this maneuver node. So we're going to have to bring this down to be quite a bit more accurate. And radial is probably where we can shift things. Yeah, so let's just shift things in. And we can just get to... Well, there's trajectories. It takes over underneath 50 kilometers. 60 is normally the orbit, I think, for Duna. So 50 is fine. And what we want to do is adjust this inwards till we see our peri... as well as hopefully this looping into an orbit. So let's just spin you around. So okay, so that's an orbit at 23 kilometers. That might be an interesting one to do, but we're never going to be quite accurate with 4.2. But if we go even a little bit further, we'll land on the dark side. I was hoping to land on the light side, so maybe just staying there will do us. And we can now just point directly at the maneuver node, just because you have that experience. And yes, this node is in 38 minutes, but it shouldn't matter terribly. We're just going to just check which engines have I got. I've got the E17 stage. This is going to be quite powerful then. Okay, so let's try and do this quick, well, slowly. Oh, that's not too bad. That's controllable. And... a little bit too far, maybe. Oh no, no, because we're a little bit early on the path, aren't we? So we need to. No, we need to actually do the opposite of that. Radial out, please. Let's just spin around, and we just want to match that 23. There we go. So 12. 25. That'll do. We'll do some final adjustment when we're about here, but otherwise that will be fine. That is enough indeed for an error capture, of course, so we can play around with that a little bit more if we want to, but we're quite far away from here. So we've got to choose, I guess, what we're going to do here, and what we can actually pick up. Crew report seems sensible. We can't actually transmit anything because we have no link back, so we're going to have to keep that for now. And while we're actually coming in here, it may be worthwhile just going in and collecting stuff just so we can reset things, I think, for temperature, pressure. I didn't put a collection thing on board, so I just definitely want to go and collect some information. Okay, so Neilden's been outside. If we just go out again, we'll see we don't have anything to pick up. It's because he's picked up an EVA report out there, and we've picked out the crew report, so we can reset that when we get into low orbit. I don't really have a scientist on board. That's something that we didn't bring. I wanted to just bring an engineer just in case I need to get those parachutes repacked and stuff like that. Excuse me. And that will do for now. If I had a 3-man lander, I would more than happily bring on a longer scientist for more science. And of course, the next time that that transfer window comes around, nearly 2 years away for the actual really efficient transfer window, we may well have a 3-person lander can to actually head out there. Or indeed, if we've proved that we don't need those chutes anymore, we can just have enough Delta V in our lander to not have to worry about repacking chutes. Then we can just bring a scientist and leave this current craft intact. That means now we're going to have to get a little bit closer. So let's get closer to Duna. Okay, this qualifies as a whole lot closer to Duna. We've come around the orbit and adjusted. One thing that's very, very important, if you intend to use aerobraking on Duna, you're going to have to make sure that your periapsis is still in the atmosphere. Don't try and go, you know, bring this down. You're not going to be able to survive it just using a heat shield, because it just won't be slow enough. You won't have enough time to then flip around and then deploy parachutes, or, you know, use your retro thrusters or something like that. You need the atmosphere to actually slow down. So let's bring ourselves towards the edge of the atmosphere, and it's around 50. So let's just bring in our solar panels now, and that'll be nice and safe. Then let's bring ourselves down past 60 kilometers towards 50. And now we're going to be caught in the atmosphere. And see that mountain right there? Well, I suppose we're right to the right of it. Now, what's going to happen? Hopefully, what's going to happen is we're not going to be able to stay on the center of this prograde. Just because we're not aerodynamically stable. This thing is just like a long tube, and it's going to struggle. But Duna's atmosphere is thin enough that shouldn't be an actual problem. We should be able to survive it just fine. And you'll see our speed is still increasing. We're just about to get to the heavy part of the atmosphere-ish as far as Duna's concerned. So let's just bring ourselves a little bit forward. You'll see it probably start, yeah, it's going to start oscillating out to the left. Nothing we can really do about that. You know, the nav computers, or the SAS is trying to keep us on the prograde vector. It will be able to do so, but yeah. We'll leave it there. It's still bleeding a speed off, and the rest of our stuff isn't in danger at the moment, so we'll just let that continue. We're at 15 kilometers now, and that's quite going to be quite a hairy entry, but we should still be able to do it. All we need to be able to do is to flip ourselves around to brake using our AJ10 stage. Technically, you can try and land on that as well, but it's probably problematic. Yeah. It is going to be problematic. So there goes our speed. Our speed's dropped. We're at 500, so let's see if we can flip around to retrograde now. Not just yet, so what we probably want to do is just let ourselves get a bit of momentum and pass back through. And go the other way. Reminds me of Pirates of the Caribbean. And there we go, we can get towards retrograde. That means we can also then burn to slow ourselves down. And get ourselves there. We can jettison the heat shield. I want to get ourselves, so we are pretty much only a few tens of meters per second. There we go, the heat shield's off. And now I'm going to be able to drop that stage and trigger the parachutes. Drop the gear. And our speed's nicely decreasing. We have 2000 delta V just because we've dropped the other stage, so it's recalculated, which is good, because we need 1400 for orbit. And we're coming down at a nice speed. I think it'll also maybe slow down a little bit. Has this opened fully? I think it has. Yeah, let's see how well we do once we get to the surface. So down we go. We're at 2,700 meters, remember, so that is quite a huge mountain. I'm not sure if that's Olympus Mons, is it? I need to check. Well, it's not Olympus Mons because it's not Mars, but yeah, I'm not sure if they've covered the same kind of geography. There is a very suspicious valley, a Marineris Valley, perhaps. Okay, so let's just slow ourselves down a little bit. And we're down. And look, that survived. Okay, but more importantly, we're on Duna. Okay, so that is pretty cool. And now we've got pilot and an engineer that are both 3-star. Our pilot can get outside and we can just get an EVA report. I will have to keep it. Unfortunately, we can't send it yet. The surface sample is worth 144 science, so we definitely wanted to keep that as well. And I'm going to let go and then just use our... Oh, there we go. Lowlands. And we can jump up and then apply RCS if we need to. Yep. Okay, can we even put a flag down? We can plant a flag. Okay, let's plant a flag, shall we? There we go. Flag for NASA. And Duna contact? Duna contact. Pretty good. I'm happy. So that's this. Well, that's most of this episode. I don't think there's much else we can actually do. We can actually let's just head back towards our lander. We can get some more science here. I did put some goo containers on there. So let's just turn on the RCS and bounce off. This is where you may want a ladder, but we should be able to. There we go. Grab and board. Okay, so let's bring up the rest of this, and you'll see we have a whole bunch of other stuff we can take. So why not? We're going to take the crew report, temperature, pressure, goo, seismic scan. Let's just collect it all. And we've got one more goo, and we're landed at the moment. So we'll maybe capture that once we're back up in orbit. And that's where we have 2000 delta V. And yeah, in orbit is much more, shall we say, it's easier to rescue people from orbit than it is from the surface. So I guess we better try getting up there. So usual takeoff rules apply. We're going to head this way. That's the north vector, so we want to, well, north direction, so we want to head this way. So let's just pack up. Do we have everything we need? I think there we are. Turn smart ASS off, and we're just going to boost. Okay, that's a little bit loud, so let's get further away, and let's head over this way. Okay, so we want to keep an eye on our APO, because we're going to be heading for around 60 kilometers, and we'll head over this direction, and let's see if we can do that. Gonna have to get further away. I'm sorry, those engines are really quite annoying. Other than that, that's fine. We can take a mystery goo observation while we're passing. This is going to be in-app flying low goo observation, and we can probably just close that down now. We shouldn't need it anymore. We're actually going to need to go upwards a fair bit more than that, so let's just correct. And it's not going to be the most efficient way into orbit here by any means, but we should be able to make it just fine, so I'll see you up there. Okay, and here we come towards our circularization burn here. Only 17 seconds, so again, split the difference, 8.5. We should get this little countdown here. We've not got that much fuel left, but it shouldn't matter so much to us. We should be able to make this. So in towards 10 seconds, 9, 8, and let's just go. Whoops. Oh, no. Wrong key. Let's hope that's not, let's hope that's not too important. Let's just back that off. The volume's too high. So in we come, and hopefully that's not going to be important. Yeah, don't time accelerate when you actually want to get circularized. And 50 kilometers, we're just skimming the top of the atmosphere there. I guess I can just extend this into a 51 should be in orbit, so that is going to be fine. We shouldn't hit the atmosphere, so yeah, again, no trajectory issues. So we can just correct once we're over the other side, of course. So let's just correct that a little bit, and got a maneuver, circularize here, point at the maneuver node, and let's get around the other side of the planet. 4-second burn. Again, I have 27 seconds of fuel, so that's not a problem at all. So now we've got an orbital craft around Duna. We have no way of connecting back to the home base and no way of getting back. So the next thing is to design another craft to go out here. Of course, we have Viking, which will let us upload our science if we want to, and reduce our motive for bringing these guys back. Of course, this craft could never come all the way back. We don't have that heat shield anymore, so sending the science is a good thing to get started with. And we can also, you know, if we can get these guys back, or indeed send a space station out here, something like that, then a rescue craft can head all the way back over, and from there maybe we put, I don't know, that rescue craft with a material collector, a science collector, or we just send it and get them home another way. But it's perfectly fine because we're in vanilla, which means we don't have any problem leaving our astronauts out here. They have essentially infinite resources apart from electric power, so that is perfectly fine. And we've got a node coming up just to circularize, so let's just actually do it. Just do it now. It doesn't really much matter that much. So up we come. Sorry about the noise. There we go. We're circularized. The job is done, and we are in orbit. Safe-ish. We certainly didn't crash, so that's an important point. Okay, so that's pretty good, I think. We've got a lot of science ready to be collected. We now probably should go back to our other Viking craft and see if it can make it out here. So let's go and switch. And unfortunately, the problem with the Viking 1 Mark II is that, again, it has run out of connection to the home base. Mainly in this case because I've not gone on the optimal transfer, which means, well, we've also had to come all the way out here beyond Duna's orbit, and I don't have the level 3 tracking center back on Kerbin yet. So I'm probably going to have... This is probably just going to fly by Duna without actually getting to it, unfortunately. I don't think we have... let me just get rid of this maneuver node, because that's way gone. Control... Oh, because... Yeah. Let's just accelerate. Let's see if we get any kind of signal. I don't think we will, but it's worthwhile seeing it anyway. Got so close. Just lost signal. I'm probably going to have to put just a deep space network out here as well, and that just will mean sending more. We've obviously got this other Kerbin to Duna in 300 days, and you'll see that's actually coming up fairly soon now, because we're fairly well time accelerated here just to get this far, so it's not going to be too terrible. We can't use that Duna to Kerbin return window as yet because we just don't have the fuel for it. So well, let's just see here. We're not going to get anywhere near it, are we? We're going to just well, is that no, we're not. Not even the slightest chance. There we go. Oh, goodbye, Duna. And Viking 1 is out here. It will continue working, of course. So once we get back in probe control, we do have 4,000 delta V to do an awful lot. And we can send this back out to Duna. There's no problem doing that. We just have to make adjustments at various other parts of the orbit. There we go. We've got signal strength back. Of course, just after we needed it. So let's just clear that. And we can sort of play around with this now just to try and get it to close enough to Duna that we can do the same thing you can do when you rescue an astronaut from orbit. You just get an encounter and you shift your orbit around. Of course, it's much slower to do this on a solar system scale than it is around a planet, but you can happily do that without much of an issue. So, you know, if we wanted to bring in at the descending node maneuver to, well, not to circularize, but if we brought ourselves in, you'll see we get the closest approach markers, and we can do the same thing that we're used to here. So that's getting worse. So we can just change the time. Actually, we need to change that well, we can't do it quite a bit. Let's just put 10 times mode on. That really doesn't change much because it takes a large amount of time to move around here, so that's fine. We can just grab the handles and decide where we want to go from there. So you'll see the markers move around, and they're not getting terribly close. Oh, no, that's much closer. If we get around there, not much we can do until there, and then we can just increase this further. Do we get even closer? Yeah, we can get another encounter. But again, this is this weird orbit where it's quite far out from Kerbin, but we can actually build it to get there. So let's just see what the closest approach is. 2 million kilometers. Let's just bring ourselves in a little bit more than that. So 178. There we go. And bring ourselves down a little bit more. And there we have a periapsis. So that's another encounter, but it will be quite a long time from now before we can actually do that. And we've got to make the maneuver right out here at Duna's orbit anyway. So given that this craft is quite cheap, we may as well just send another one when we get to the transfer window, which is only in a few months now anyway. So that's not much of an issue. We can just leave this out here and use it later. It is perfectly well capable of acting as a relay, which means we could put it on a solar orbit much more easily. So if we just, let's say we put a maneuver here and we circularize, that will be just on the inside of Kerbin's orbit. So if we, let's say we put it outside of that, so that's, wow, it's quite a bit of delta V. Yeah, We have plenty though. So why don't we just reduce that and put it somewhere between Duna and Kerbin. That seems reasonable. So we'll add an alarm for that and we'll come back to that later. And that is, in fact, that's actually before this window. So let's just get ourselves to that maybe and warp towards it. There we go. And then once, obviously, when we get out here, we'll bring this side up and then we'll act as a kind of intermediate relay sometimes for transmissions to Duna. And we can put a couple of others up here as well to act as the start of a deep space network. But it's certainly not useless, this craft. It's just that we can't get to Duna directly, unfortunately. Yep, so we're going to be wanting to go retrograde more. That's the alarm. Yeah, there goes basically our return window. And we can plan another one. When's the next return window? Duna to Kerbin. Plot it and add an alarm. That is 2 years, 14 days. Okay. And we're coming in now towards this. Again, we're so far away from this, it doesn't matter when we do this maneuver. We're just going to go prograde. Oh, sorry, retrograde. Yeah, close the alarm. Go retrograde, please. And let's bring ourselves in, and then we can close out the episode. So hopefully you enjoy this one. We got successful landing, we got science. We just have to get it back somehow. It's not an issue, there's plenty of ways to do it, but yeah, we have to just get it back. So let's just burn. Bring this orbit in. I don't even care that much about being exact. I just want it to be roughly halfway between two orbits. That's one stage gone, so our last vestige of our original launcher can go. And then we can just use this one, which is much weaker, but it'll actually get the job done. We've got nearly 7 minutes of fuel, well, 6.5 minutes, so we'll bring that in. And there we go, that's achieved. So we just had another maneuver out here, and we will just get that added so that we need to come back to that later. Otherwise, we can go back to the Space Center. And did any of that science that we transmitted, well, at least the minimal amounts of science we transmitted, does that push us over to get another research node? 188 science, probably not. 100, well, actually, yeah. We can get one of these specialized control nodes. An anchor, don't need an anchor. It's not going to be an issue. Werner engine and a monoprop tank. I think I'll save the science unless there's anything good in here. The grabbing unit. Grabbing unit sort of useful for rescue and stuff like that, but I don't think we need it. I'd sort of quite like to get to nuclear propulsion. That's going to need more science, of course. But is there anything in here? The Octo 2 is very nice. MechJeb Ascent is also very nice. Large thermal control systems. The Giganto XL array, which is really good for space stations. Field science. Just mostly that's the rover stuff. Rover autopilot, heavy landing. That's the inflatable heat shield. I didn't actually have it. That's what we need to get to. And then I think this is largely into, yeah, it's a larger shell. That just makes larger rockets much nicer. Advanced metalworks, inflatable airlock. Well, I don't think I've actually used that before. Interesting. That may be a mod thing. Is that a mod thing? We'll see. A winch useful for landing. And I like the shielded docking ports. They look quite nice. So that's a useful thing to get. But yeah, I think probably nuclear propulsion is a good one to get because then you can build a craft sort of around it. It's quite long, so you do tend to have to need to probably put tanks around it rather than above it and below it. But otherwise, it can serve as a good engine to get around the solar system with because you only need the you don't need the oxidizer, you just need the fuel, and that works very, very well for that kind of thing. Okay, so that closes out this episode. We're on 842,000. Do we have... Oh, build new surface outpost on Duna. 5 kerbals. No, that's not going to happen just yet. Do we have any other missions that we can do? I suppose we... Oh, that's 12 kerbals. That's quite hard. Orbital station. Well, we do want an orbital station eventually. Whether we can actually launch something that big, that's another thing entirely. Possibly. Needs an antenna docking port, supporting 8 kerbals, have a cupola, or cupola, depending on your country of origin, and a research lab. So the research lab has 2 people in it, the cupola has 1, so that needs 5 more on the rest of the station. That we can send it out in separate chunks and dock them, I suppose, and the contract is quite a large one, so maybe we'll have to see if we can launch something like that. If you have any ideas about a station that can actually put that up, or at least a rocket that can put that up, feel free to put them in the comments below like everything else you might see in this episode. Otherwise, guys, thanks a lot for watching. Feel free to like, shout, subscribe, and share if you've enjoyed the episode. And of course, as always, guys, thanks for watching.